Such a sound. Good evening, my friends, and welcome to Wednesday night live stream meditation. Marvelous to have you all with us. Here we are in beautiful Carmel, California. We get a lot of fog right now, so it's still kind of chilly, not much summer yet. So I might come visit you folks where it's warmer. So, of course, all the work that we do is around the mechanism, the Christ mechanism of what we call the Star Tetrahedron. It's a form of consciousness and light, a very subtle form that we begin to create through imagination around and through the body. The magic, of course, of the star tetrahedron is as these triangulations turn, as this prismatic structure, prism, the turning of the prismatic structure literally begins to open a vortex, excuse me, vortex right in the middle of the star tetrahedron, which is within the heart chakra. And literally then a doorway of vortex opens back into the void, where all creation exists unmanifest. It's much like if you have a thought, and let's say your eyes are closed and you have a thought, you don't see anything, you simply have a thought. You might have an image in your mind of what it is you might want to create, but it's still a thought. It takes something to manifest it, to bring it into form. And so that's what the Christ mechanism does, this prismatic structure. It takes the thought, which is within the mind of God, so to speak. And just as you have a thought, and then it takes action and it takes substance to bring it into creation, this is what the Christ field does. It illuminates within the void that which is the mind of Source, unmanifest God, whatever you should like to call Source. And as it then identifies that particular thought, that image, it then creates a reflection from out of the void, which then moves through the open doorway and then through the prismatic structure of the spinning Christ field, prism. It then takes light and then refracts it, that image, into a refraction, a reflection, and then a remembering of that which is within the void. And so it becomes manifest. It literally then glitters it into light activation within this form. Now, another understanding of how that works, if you could imagine when you go to a movie, there's the projector room. And as the projector room has within it the film, well, let's say for us that the film is then everything possible. In that dark room, the projector room, everything is possible. All film that has ever been created, they're there. And the projectionist, which in our analogy we'll say is Source, is God, it's all there within the projector room, but it's unmanifest. But what happens is there then is a lens, and that prismatic lens, it is able to take which is the film, and through light shining through the film, which is attention and focus, we bring light to the image, and through the lens, it then plays upon the screen. And so it becomes manifest. So let's say that that which is Source God is in the void, and from out of the void it has manifested creation. Literally, on the screen of reality, there is manifestation. Well, if you can imagine, it's like a big bubble. So if you can imagine, this is the screen. Inside is the projector room, so to speak, and then that which is Source, God, has projected out you and I in creation. And so now we exist on the outer rim, so to speak, of the bubble. The void is within, where all things are unmanifest, waiting to come into bubble manifestation. And as we're out here, you see on the outer rim, the bubble, the screen, what we are doing as human beings, we're then creating reflections, mirrors of our feelings, our emotions, who and what we are. And so if we have worry or fear or loneliness, we project it out from us. And then we create a person, a situation, something in the world that mirrors that feeling tone back to us. If we have love and joy and feelings of prosperity, that then emanates out from us, and upon the outer bubble, it then creates it as a mirror. And we find prosperity, we find loving relationships, we find joy, and we find good works, a reflection of what we are feeling and experiencing inside. And as we continue to exist on the bubble, we're learning, we're growing. We're understanding that when we have emotions of fear and sadness and grief, it's because we're not really learning yet to love oneself. And because we haven't loved yet, the fear of not being worthy, of being lonely inside, it projects out and creates something that doesn't manifest as loving relationships. And so we keep then changing the self, loving the self. And as we then love the self more and more, we realize that as I love me, I then experience things that love me: prosperity, joy, peace. In the same vein, we then are using our power, our mind. Are we now using the mind to try and make things out there to feel good enough here? Is our attention, our light focused upon money, power, recognition, glamour, sexuality? Is it something out there we're continually creating with the mind in order to find joy and peace within? And so we learn through focusing on the mind. If I'm trying to create money to be good enough or glamour to be good enough, it's not working out. I begin to change my focus. I begin to hold my light steady upon loving myself, loving spirit, loving that which is source within. And as we do that, we begin to take that which is power, light, what we call the masculine energy. We've now refined and we've now awakened divine love within. We love. And because we so powerfully love now, we're no longer caught upon the surface of the bubble. We begin to hone together the power of the mind and love, which then begins to create this conscious light mechanism within us, the Star Tetrahedron. And so it's now moving around within and through the entire body. And as this prismatic form is then turning, it then opens in the very center a doorway. And as that doorway opens, we're no longer on the bubble. A vortex is created on the bubble of this creative reality that we are living within. And we then begin to find ourselves now moving back into the center, which is the void, where all things exist in possibilities. The thought, the mind, if you will, of what we would call God, source. But the thought of mind of God's source is unmanifest. But as we now hover within the void, and we have the light of the mind, and we have love, we can identify within the void what would be our choices of creation. And because we love so profoundly, we know that our creation will be loving. Because we use the mind to only create that which is joy and grace and beauty and harmony, we know that it will then create that within the world. And so we are given all the powers of heaven and earth, so to speak, to become a creator being. Hovering in the void, illuminating the choices of our creation because we've opened the stargate within. And as the mind is now hovering and then moving interiorly into the void, we're now hovering there. We illuminate the choices of our creation. We hold the mind steady upon the image feeling of that. It creates a reflection off of it. Mind is still steady. Love is still established. It then touches the facets of this spinning star tetrahedron around us. And just like the projector at the movie, It then moves it upon the screen of reality, and thus we become a creator. We're not attached to our creation. We're not wanting to make it this or that. We're simply creative joy bringing it forth. And so there's no attachment. Attachment causes pain and suffering, as the Buddha says. We're simply creating the mind of God into form, and it is now so powerful and loving. It edifies creation. It begins to create a heaven on earth experience. And it is this place we are now evolving to. The old way of living on the surface of the bubble, manipulating and controlling and wanting and needing and desiring, is creating such havoc on the surface of the bubble, it's disintegrating. It's becoming destructured and broken. The next evolution of humanity is we learn to, through powerful love, open the sacred doorway, the vortex. We now exist once again within the void where all thoughts exist, and there is a world of perfection. There is a form of perfection. There is nothing but harmony and grace and bliss and goodness and grace within the void. And because you are now able to exist simultaneously within the void and upon the surface of the bubble as a realized being, no longer trying to change the world or make it different, no longer even trying to change yourself. You simply illuminate, hovering in the void, you illuminate the image and the feeling of perfection. It already exists within the mind of God, which you are. It's not something separate from you. When the great projectionist within the room of the movie began to project out creation, it was simply God's source, if you will, projecting out the self. As we then lived on the bubble, the surface of creation, we were lost. We fell from grace. We thought, well, I'm not God, I'm not source. But that's been the whole joy of evolution, is to come back to knowing I am God. I am power and love. I can then hone and refine the Christ field around me and open the vortex once again back into that which I am, God, source. And I can illuminate the perfection of the form physical that I choose, the world that I create, the prosperity that I manifest, the unlimited food supply, the unlimited of all creation. It becomes magic. This is the next wave of human evolution. It is the saviorship of the planet. And it's becoming at a critical juncture now because the destructuring is happening so rapidly that there's a great possibility that a lot of it could be lost. The oceans are falling, the air quality, diseases, all manifestations of chaos on the outer bubble. It's a very critical choice we make now. Will I become a co-creator and evolve into the new paradigm, which began really on December 21st of this last year, 2020? As you know, we moved out of Pisces into Aquarius, the pouring out of the living waters of creation. It's now upon us, and a choice needs to be made. I encourage you not to live on the surface in chaos, but to hone and refine power and love. Open the door within your heart to that which is God within you. And from inside out, you become a creator being, and then we bring peace on earth. So that's a little bit of edification about the void and how it is we manifest and create reality. Pretty exciting, to say the least. And so as we continue to hone and refine, you see in our meditation, the ability to hold the mind steady, the light, imagination, feminine feel, love, the feeling of love, the Star Tetrahedron. As we imagine and love, we then create the image of this amazing structure, and over time it becomes literally real within us. We feel it moving, flowing around us. We feel the open doorway. I can now literally say, as I open the doorway and I then allow myself to, if you will, somewhat dissolve the form and then hover in the void, I feel myself as that which is within the void. And from out of it, like a wonderful bubble, I am then blowing out the creation that I choose. The joy, the peace, the prosperity, the body, the form, creation. I am then in the projector room projecting out creation. It's been again, a very dedicated and disciplined process I've gone through. I encourage you now to also come into this knowing that you too have this quality, this amazing possibility. And now we need to make the choice for Mother Earth. Good. So one of the things that we do, of course, do in our work is the breath work, which is a symbol, a feeling of breathing from inside out, from the void, this energy of source. And so as we're doing the Sohum breath and we are then breathing in, we're not only breathing in oxygen, but equally important, we're imagining this open doorway within the void. And as we're then inhaling, we're also then summoning the feeling of this movement, this living spring of life force from inside out. It is a very real thing that begins to happen and to take place. This again is the honing and the refining of the Star Tetrahedron, the feeling of source arising forth from within. And as we then have that deep in breath, the so, we hold it for a couple of counts. The gentle hum, letting go of the breath. We then imagine and feel this glittering, effervescent substance moving through the body, flowing out into the world, and now we are recreating the world with magic. We're not trying to change it, we're simply changing the frequency of creation. We're overlaying the ignorance with perfection. So this is the Sohum breath. We're going to do it for about 5 minutes. I encourage you to sit with the spine quite straight. It becomes the rod of initiation in our spiritual work, around which the Star Tetrahedron then turns. It's what the Sufis, when they did their dancing, they simply began to spin, and that was a symbol of the Star Tetrahedron spinning around the vortex. So let's go ahead and do about 5 minutes of deep Sohum breath. As you know, I like to sit with eyes open because I practice the Sohum breath when I'm walking, gardening, driving, refining always the feeling of source arising forth from inside out. Another deep breath, summoning Source. And slowly coming back into the now. The star mechanism, the Christ field, it's the doorway back into void. It is the mechanism of void transitioning back into the state of the void, God I am within. As the upper triangulation is turning left to right clockwise, and the lower triangulation right to left counterclockwise, it is this movement of opposing triangulations that opens the sacred doorway within the middle. And so right in the very middle of the heart chakra, the doorway opens, and it's from, of course, this place in images of the Master Jesus, who mastered the Christ field. From inside out, the light eminent comes forth. So this is the open doorway. And then he said, all that God is, source, I am. Because we are now literally living within the void, and here also within a dimensional world, and all that God is, both unmanifest and manifest, I am. So this is creatorship. As the star tetrahedron is turning and it opens the doorway, you can then begin to feel yourself hovering within the void and arising forth. You will then imagine and feel this golden living spring source arising forth, touching the facets of the star tetrahedron and then literally illuminating the body with a new body of purity and grace. And so we're not trying to change the body. We're simply hovering within the void, and we have illuminated the golden perfection of the Christ God field. It arises forth and automatically begins to formulate the new body. So I'm going to take you through the full formulation of the Christ field, and then we will meditate for about 35 and 40 minutes, and I will gather all of us together in the field of oneness. So let's go ahead and close the eyes and feel the body relaxing. Gently focusing the mind upon relaxing and letting go. We can be aware of the breath. Once again, the Sohum Breath, breathing in, source from inside out. Mind resting upon breath, becoming focused and relaxing. We bring our attention between the eyebrows. Imagine we could draw a line straight back. Within the approximate center point of the head, we ignite the light, the pure light of oneness. Gently holding attention here, light increases, filling the mind, the waters of the brain with living light. We focus the light to the heart chakra at the sternum, and we illuminate the star tetrahedron. Triangulation with apex above, divine power. We can imagine it turning left to right. We don't get lost in the movement, it simply happens. So let go. The lower triangulation, apex beneath, divine feminine love turning right to left. However it turns for you is just right. The movement of the star tetrahedrons opens a sacred doorway within the very center of the heart chakra. Within the chest, a doorway opens back into the void. And the eternal spring of Source arises forth, a living spring, touching the facets of the prismatic star, and spinning out living light through you and all around you. Perfection and grace recreate you. Let go and be the living star. I will join with you and gather all of us together in a field of oneness. And very easily now, slowly coming back into the now. As we practice the Star Tetrahedron in our meditation, we don't want to get hung up or lost on the rotation. Whatever feels easiest in your imagination, go with that. And in the background of your knowing, we know that it's turning left to right, clockwise, upper triangulation, lower triangulation. In fact, though, it's really much like an atom. An atom turns all ways almost simultaneously. It turns right and left, up and down, in and out. It's a more of a shuttering, if you will, energy. But to begin our formulation of it, to see simply the upper triangulation left to right, lower triangulation right to left. And whatever size is convenient for you, if you want to see it the size of the body, if you want to see it much smaller, it doesn't really matter because it's simply about creating the transition place into the void where you know that you are now hovering in the silence of being with Source and illuminating then the preferences of your creation. And as the mind, the projector, is held steady upon the image feeling, it creates a refraction, and then a reflection out into this dimension. And the Christ field automatically begins to bring it forth into prismatic form. So as we practice it, we become, of course, more adept at it. So, of course, I encourage that. If you have any questions about your work with the Star Tetrahedron or things in your life, please let me know. I'm always here to serve you. And we will be back 2 weeks from tonight with another meditation evening. Of course, I want to thank you for joining. It's always such a great pleasure to have you here with us. And a lot of new and fine people showed up. So thank you very much. And that's it for this evening, my friends. Namaste.